Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack something huge, one of the biggest human migrations in history, actually. We're talking about India's massive, generation-defining shift from its villages to its cities.
Okay, let's just kick things off with a single number. But wow, what a number. By 2050, we're looking at an estimated 820 million people living in India's cities. Just let that sink in for a second. This isn't just some slow, gradual growth we're talking about. No, this is a complete reshaping of the most populous nation on Earth.
So, to really get our heads around this massive change, here's the game plan. We're going to look at why it's happening, what life is actually like on the ground in these cities, and, why they're struggling so much to keep up. Then we'll dig into the environmental price tag and finish up by looking at how we might reimagine a better future.
All right, first up, the Great Urban Migration. So, what's really driving this incredible shift in population? I mean, why are millions and millions of people making this move? Well, it's not just one thing. It's actually a really powerful mix of forces at play.
It's really that classic story of push and pull factors, right? On one hand, you've got forces pushing people out of villages. We're talking about real-world distress, farming crises, not enough jobs, and climate change making things like monsoons totally unpredictable. Then, on the other side, you have the cities acting like these giant magnets, pulling people in with the promise of better jobs, higher pay, good schools, healthcare, the whole dream of a modern lifestyle.
Okay, so people arrive in the city with all these hopes. But what happens when that massive wave of new arrivals hits the hard reality of a megacity? Well, let's just say the dream and the daily grind can be two very, very different things.
And this, right here, shows you the incredible contrast, the paradox, really. On one hand, these cities are absolute economic powerhouses. We're talking about them generating a whopping 75% of the country's GDP. But, and this is a huge but, in those exact same cities, places like Mumbai and Delhi, somewhere between 42 and 55% of the people are living in slums. That's the core conflict of India's urban story, all in one chart.
So all this rapid, frankly unplanned growth has left a massive hole. There's a formal housing shortage of nearly 19 million homes. Think about that. And even if you find work, a staggering 80 to 90% of those jobs are in the informal sector. What does that mean? It means low pay, zero job security, no benefits. It's a system that basically traps millions of people in this cycle of just getting by, living in overcrowded areas without reliable access to clean water or sanitation.
So, this all begs a really important question. Who's supposed to be managing all this, and why does it feel like they're falling so short? Well, the answer really gets down to a deep, deep problem with governance.
As always, if you want to understand the problem, you got to follow the money. And this chart tells a huge part of the story. You see, Indian cities are incredibly dependent on money handed down to them from the state and central governments. They have almost no power to raise their own funds. Their own tax revenue? It's only about a third of their total budget.
And when you put India side by side with other big economies, the problem just jumps right out at you. India has one of the lowest property tax collection rates in the world. So while cities elsewhere have real financial independence, India's municipal governments are, well, they're basically treated like kids. They get an allowance from the state, but they have no real power to earn their own money. And that financial starvation means they just can't grow.
And look, this isn't just some boring accounting issue. This weakness has real-world consequences that people feel every single day. It's why the roads are crumbling. It's why the water supply is unreliable. It's why cities can't fund the big long-term projects they desperately need. And to make it all worse, you have this tangled mess of different agencies all trying to do the same thing, which just leads to confusion and, well, nothing getting done.
But this gridlock doesn't just affect infrastructure. It has another consequence, one that's honestly even more dangerous: the environmental cost. This is where all that poor planning stops being an inconvenience and starts becoming a genuine, life-threatening crisis.
First off, cities have literally paved over their own natural defenses. I mean, in just the last 30 years, 40% of the country's wetlands have vanished. Gone. These wetlands are like nature's sponges. They soak up all that heavy monsoon rain. So when you get rid of them, even a normal amount of rain can cause a disaster.
And it's not just water, it's heat. All that concrete and asphalt everywhere has created these dangerous urban heat islands. So a city like Delhi can be 4 to 7 degrees Celsius hotter than the rural areas right outside it. That's a huge difference. It turns a brutal heat wave into a truly deadly event. The cities are becoming literal ovens. And if that wasn't bad enough, scientists have found a new hidden threat. And honestly, it's terrifying. When floodwaters, which are often full of sewage and other nasty stuff, start to evaporate, they release these things called bioaerosols. Basically, they are tiny airborne particles packed with viruses and bacteria. They get into the air we breathe and can cause serious lung problems. And the worst part? This danger sticks around long after the flood is gone. And it can harm people who never even went near the water.
Okay, I know this all sounds incredibly grim, but the story is definitely not over. This future isn't set in stone. There are actually very clear, very doable things that can be done to build a much better, more resilient urban future.
So, what's the plan? Well, experts have laid out a pretty clear strategy. Step 1, you have to fix the money problem. Give cities the power to raise their own funds and manage them. Step 2, you have to plan for people, not just concrete and steel. That means inclusive housing and protecting migrant rights. Step 3, build with nature, not against it. Use green spaces to manage floods and cool things down. And finally, Step 4, build up the smaller Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities to take some of the pressure off the giant megacities.
And the good news is, things are already moving. There's real political will here. We've got huge national programs like the Smart Cities Mission and Emirate 2.0 that are pouring money into upgrading city infrastructure, everything from high-tech transport to simply making sure everyone has clean water.
And really, this brings us full circle, back to the central idea of this whole story, which is captured perfectly by Amartya Sen. Urbanization isn't the problem. It's a massive opportunity, an opportunity to lift millions of people out of poverty and boost the whole country's economy. But, and it's a really big but, only if it's guided with vision and only if it's for everyone.
So that's where we are. India's cities are at a massive crossroads, and the choices made in the next few years will decide the future for hundreds of millions. Will they become these incredible engines of prosperity for everyone? Or will they turn into hotspots of inequality and environmental disaster? That's the question, and the answer is being written as we speak.